life and existentialism, a philosophy that brings everything together. Existentialism is centered on freedom and responsibility. It argues that individuals are not defined by rules, systems, or algorithms, but by the choices they make. This idea is most closely associated with Jean-Paul Sartre, who famously argued that humans are condemned to be free, meaning we are always responsible for our actions even when circumstances influence us. When applied to social media, existentialism asks the confronting questions. Are we choosing how we engage or are we drifting into habits without reflection? Social media constantly present choices what to follow, what to post, how to present ourselves, but it also nudges users towards threats, validation, and conformity. Existentialism does not deny these pressures, but it insists that responsibility does not disappear because of them. The findings of this report reflect this tension clearly, and the reviews largely attributed the emotional impact of social media to the type and amount of content they consume, while also recognizing that platforms strongly shape what is seen and rewarded. This explains why responsibility was viewed as shared yet leaning toward platforms. Existentialism frames this as a situation where environments influence choices but do not erase accountability. At its core, existentialism warns against in authentic living when people allow external systems to define their identity and values for them. Social media becomes ethically troubling when users begin to measure their worth through trends, metrics, or approval rather than through deliberate self-definition.
Oliver wakes up that morning with a simple intentions to study. His alarm rings and his hand reaches for his phone. Within seconds, he is scrolling through photos, videos, and updates from other people's lives that feel more interesting than his own morning. As he walks toward his thing, his eyes never leave the screen. Even when he starts brushing his teeth, his attention is still locked on the phone. Suddenly, his friend texts him to hang up. He walks toward his desk, sitting down, still holding his phone. However, he was too lazy to hang out with his friend and made excuses that he had to study. The book finally opens, but not even read a few lines. Short videos appear one after another entertaining, motivation clips, and trending products. He even bought products that he didn't really need. He also didn't realize that time was continuing to pass quietly in the background. The morning is almost gone. Before leaving his desk, he uploads the photo of his study setup to Instagram. He closed the book, untouched and unread. To others, it looked like a productive morning. To Oliver, it feels empty.
And off with the philosophical concepts suitable with these findings, starting off with utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is defined as a moral theory that evaluates action based on the consequences, trying to find the greatest amount of benefits for the greatest amount of people. And this idea comes from the philosophers Jeremy Ben Bentham and John Stuart Mill, arguing that moral judgment should focus on outcomes more than the intentions behind them. Because when applied to social media, utilitarianism asks whether these platforms improve the collective well-being of all the people that use it. And so, social media does indeed offer some benefits such as entertainment, communication, and easy access to information would bring joys to many users. However, there's also a caveat here in which we found in this report where many interviewees does express that the negative effect on their emotional well-being because of the social media. They mostly due to the type of content that they consume and the amount of time spent on it. Because these effects were widespread, utilitarianism considered them very significantly morally gray. And recent researchers also support this view, that arguing that digital technologies should be judged on their long-term impact on well-being and not just their engagement and popularity. From this perspective, platforms that maximize usage while contributing to the widespread distress fail to maximize the overall happiness and well-being of all of its users. And therefore, utilitarianism supports strategies such as digital wellness, education, and responsible platform design that has been expressed before inside of our preventive measures in our report. And so, it aims to reduce harm while preserving as much benefit as possible. And in conclusion, ethical reform is needed to better align social media with the goal of maximizing collective of well-being. Thank you.
Okay, moving into social morality, let's look at the social media through the lens of social morality now. Social morality is about the shared social norms that quality guide how people behave. It's not just about what person chooses to do, but what community slowly comes to see as normal. Sociologist Emily Durkheim described as morality as a system of social rules that shape conduct, often without us even noticing. Social media is one of the most powerful spaces where this happens today. Every engagement sends a signal about what behavior is accepted, rewarded, or ignored. Over time, certain patterns such as constantly seeking validation, presenting a perfect image, or comparing oneself to others stop feeling unusual and start feeling expected. This was reflected so on in the interviews as participants spoke about how the type and amount of content they consume affected them. Evidence that these behaviors are no longer just individual choices but part of a wider online culture, the new norm. This also explains why many interviews lean towards holding platform accountable. Platforms don't just post behaviors, they shape it by deciding what gets visibility and what fades. Platforms help define the moral tones of space. Is what is repeatedly rewarded slowly becomes what feels acceptable. From social morality perspective, the issue is not just often individuals' responsibility or platform rules, but about the kind of digital cultures being created. Prevention then means questioning and reshaping the norms that social media environments encourages rather than treating harmful patterns as inevitable.
Albert is sprawled on his bed as he scrolls through his Instagram. He lingers on a post from Oliver, an image of studying that looks clean and convincing. The kind of photo that makes it seem like everything is under control. His eyes drift to his own desk. A small motivational note sits there, waiting to be useful. He reads it, then ignores it. Nothing changed. A moment later, the feed is gone and his own except one that feels louder even when the room stays silent. He writes something short about failing a final exam. The response comes back fast. Not one voice, but many. Some turn it into a joke. Some make it an argument. The tone heats up, and before he realizes it, he's sitting upright, having more emotion right now. Then he closes his phone and sets it down. The room is quiet again, but the heaviness stays. Moving on to the next concept, we have virtue ethics, a concept that is less concerned with rules or consequences and more concerned with character. That asks a simple but demanding questions. What kind of person are we becoming through our actions? This approach comes from Aristotle, who argued that moral character is formed through habit. What we are repeated to shapes who we are. When we apply this to social media, the focus shifts from single posts to patterns of behavior. Social media encourages habits, constant checking, comparison, self-presentations, and quick reactions. Over time, these behaviors stop being occasional and start becoming routine. The findings of this report make this especially relevant. Interviews consistently point out that the type of content they consume and the amount of time spent consuming it affect them. From a virtue ethics perspective, this matters because repeated exposures from habits and habits shape character. A platform that regrets excess and constant attentions make moderation harder to practice. Virtue ethics also explains why education matter. Instead of banning behavior or enforcing strict rules, it focuses on cultivating traits like moderation, self-control, and practical judgments. However, character does not develop in a vacuum. Environment matters. When platforms are designed to embrace constant engagement, they work against the development of these virtues. From this perspective, the ethical issues with social media is not just what users do once, but what they are trained to do repeatedly. If digital space normalizes access and distractions, they risk shaping habits that undermine balance and restraint. Ethical preventions, therefore, requires both users and platforms to support habits that contribute to a well-lived life rather than habitual overuse. Richie sits on a chair, holding his phone. His face shows concern and urgency. He opens Snapchat, types a story, and he posts it. He's hoping someone will see it in time. Richie reported this to his mother, but his mother still played this. He was still frustrated that his wallet has missing. The next day, Keanu is standing outside, scrolling on his phone, and suddenly, Keanu frowns. He sees Richie's Snapchat story. His eyes widen. He's thinking what to do about it. Other side, Adam sat in a bench. He noticed it, paused briefly. He looks around, unsure. He doesn't know someone is looking for it. Adam shrugs and walks away. The wallet remains there. Keanu opens the chat. He wants to screenshot the story, but the story disappeared. He refreshed Snapchats. Nothing. The story is gone. Keanu starts searching the area, checking the ground, looking under benches. He looks around, confused, trying to remember the details. His movements become more urgent. Suddenly, he spotted the wallet and took it. Meanwhile, on the other side, Adam stopped walking. He scrolls through his Snapchat again. A new story appears. Someone reposted or mentioned Richie's lost wallet. He freezes and realizes, and turns back and runs towards the bench. The wallet is gone. Adam looks around and frustrated.
Next, deontology. It is a concept that mirrors utilitarianism in a way as if theory judges based on duties and principles rather than the outcomes. Immanuel Kant argued that people must always be treated as ends in themselves, not merely as means to achieve other goals. Famously stating that we should act in ways that respect humanity as an end and never only as a means. And when applied to social media, deontology shifts attention away from popularity or engagement and towards ethical responsibility. Social media platforms are not neutral tools, they are deliberately designed and governed by companies that control its ins and outs from a deontological perspective. Platforms therefore have a duty to respect users' dignity, autonomy, and right to informed participation, even if more exploitative designs could increase profits. The findings of this report support this concern, while the responsibility was seen as shared. Most interviews learned toward platform accountability, arguing that platforms should take greater precaution because they control how the applications function. Deontologically, this makes sense. Greater structural power brings greater moral obligation. At the same time, deontology does not remove individual responsibility. Users also have duties such as honesty, respect, and accountability for what they post or endorse online. In conclusion, for a deontological perspective, ethical social media use requires both responsible platform design and individual moral duty, with greater responsibility resting on platforms due to their control over digital environments.
Based on the evidence and analysis, the report points to a clear two-part framework for preventing physiological harm caused by social media. This isn't about quitting the digital world, but it's about implementing strategies that address to the problem, its two main sources, the individual experience and the platform environment. The review and research confirm that emotional impact is directly tied to what we consume and how we engage. The preventive strategy here is intentionally education. This means teaching users, especially young users, to critically evaluate content, to understand that online personas are curated performance, and to recognize the mechanism like infinite scroll and like counts, designed to capture attention. The goal is to move users from passive consumption to intentional use. This is the foundation of digital wellness.
Also, changing the platform instead of the user is a key part of the prevention conversation. Social media is not only a product of its users, but also the company platforming it. These platforms decide what is allowed, encouraged, and normalized on their app through policies and post visibility. The invisible design and governance decisions influence the online norm.
Research by Helberger argues that because online platforms govern public discourses on their apps, they must share responsibility for upholding public values like fairness, transparency, and accountability. This is cooperative responsibility between platforms and users. However, the interview results show a clear tendency to favor platforms being responsible over user responsibility. Therefore, preventative strategies that prioritize platform-level accountability while still recognizing individual agency. The greater ethical benefit is achieved when platforms assume a leading role in safeguarding digital spaces, complemented by user responsibility rather than replaced by it. This aligns with the concept of cooperative responsibility, where platforms must take a proportionately greater responsibility over virtual environments.
Third, virtue ethics shows that repeated online behaviors can form habits that weaken empathy, patience, and sincerity, qualities essential for good moral characters. And finally, existentialism challenges individuals to live a much more authentic life in a world of constant comparison, to encourage them to define themselves by their own two choices and words. And overall, the point is not that social media is a bad thing that must be rejected completely, rather than it is needed to be used more responsibly and reflectively in order to bring out all of its good sides while still very much so pressing down on the issues that social media may cause. And in conclusion, social media's influence on the youth, mental health and morality is powerful but not unchangeable. And so we must work towards a future with a philosophical eye and preventive strategies that have been stated much before. That is all from me. Thank you.
Third, virtue ethics shows that repeated online behaviors can form habits that weaken empathy, patience, and sincerity, qualities that are essential for good moral character. Finally, existentialism challenges individuals to live more authentically in a world of constant comparison, encouraging them to define who they are through their own choices, rather than through validation and others. Overall, the point is not that social media must be rejected completely, but that it needs to be used more responsibly and effectively. Preventive strategies such as digital awareness education and stronger platform responsibility are important steps toward healthier technology use. The responsibility to build a digital culture that supports self-awareness instead of dependency is shared by young people, educators, and developers. In conclusion, social media's influence on youth, mental health, and morality is powerful, but it is not unchangeable. By combining philosophical reflection with practical strategies, young people can move towards a more conscious, ethical, and balanced relationship with digital life.